Hey everyone. So now I'm actually thinking of changing the name of the channel to EDC for how many times I say during my videos. Try to keep that to a minimum today. Here I have a Tuya Caladan V2. Okay, second version of this knife. I never actually got to experience the first version. They sold out before I knew they existed. But so this second version apparently has some improvements over the first. I'll go over those. This is something I've had for about, I don't know, a month now, 2 months. I initially had this sent out to my friend, the EDC Knife Noob, for a video. He did a short review on this. So now you're going to get my thoughts after carrying this around for a couple of weeks. So to start off, these things cost about, I think like 250 or so. Nothing too crazy. Still not that cheap though. They do come in a bunch of different versions. So the one that I have in front of you now is with the DLC coated blade. You see that has a nice hand satin finish on it. I love that finish. And the white G10 scales with red G10 liners. Now, you can also get the same configuration with the uncoated blade, just a satin finish, no DLC, and with a bunch of different carbon fiber inlays, or just without inlays, in which case you get a fully exposed lock bar. This one looked the most interesting to me because I don't really have anything else with a white handle in my collection, so I wanted something that would be a little bit different. One of the things that attracted me most on this guy is actually the fact that it has a DLC on top of the satin finish. I love the way that looks. I hate when they do DLC on a matte finish. It gets fingerprints on it and smudges that are like impossible to wipe off, and it just doesn't look as cool. I mean, putting a DLC on top of a polish just looks really nice. So anyway, this is a full-size knife. I think it's a 3.7-inch blade. Got a nice full handle. Really fills the hand. Incredible action. And I think this was really one of the main selling points for this was the action on these. Machine pocket clip, which works just fine. Goes in and out of the pocket easily. Stays in place. No complaints there. What I do have complaints though about are the fit and finish. So these cost about, I think I spent $260 on this. I got it through White Mountain Knives, which has a discount. I think you can also get them through Jim Skelton's site. He is the designer of these. These are made by Tuya. And I have to say, after looking over this thing, Tuya is not, I guess you could say, on par with a lot of the other big name Chinese manufacturers like Wii or Riat or Bestech even. And I'll try to show why. So first off, the inlays or the scales here, I don't know what you would consider them, they don't fit particularly well. It's not bad, but taking a close look at it, and I don't know if it'll show up on camera here, so you're going to see it's not flush. So if you run your finger along here, you can catch your finger on the edge of this scale. It's raised up a little bit above the titanium, and it's also the gap here, and I don't really think the camera's picking it up all that well. The gap is inconsistent. There's a little bit more of a gap at one end than there is at the other. And then looking around the back here, there were some burrs that you can really feel along the edge of the back spacer here. And again, I don't know if the camera will pick it up well, but you can see there's some inconsistencies in the machining here where it's a little bit asymmetrical. There's some burrs back here as well. And I think there's even a burr up here somewhere. Yeah, there's a burr up here on the edge of the lock bar. And you can feel all these things. They will catch your finger. They're not sharp enough to cut you, but it is a little bit indicative of maybe like a lack of a final quality control or lack of attention to the finishing that they put on these in the final steps. Now, comparisons to companies like Wee or Riat. I'm pretty sure if this same knife had been done by Riat, it would have cost $100 more. So I guess that's the trade-off you get, is that it's you pay a little bit less, but you get a little bit less in terms of the the level of finishing and quality control on this. So those are all the really big gripes here. I have another smaller gripe here. You see the sharpening choil here. It doesn't come out far enough. It's not quite clearing the plunge on the blade, and so what you get is even from the factory, you get a smile on the edge bevel. It's not the worst thing ever. It's something that's really more irritating for me as someone who does do sharpening. I know that if I'm ever going to come in and sharpen this, that smile is just going to get bigger. And most likely what I would do before I sharpen it is I would take a stone and I would actually kind of trim the edge back a little here to extend this choil a little further, just so I'm not, creating so much of a smile and going up further into that grind. Aside from that, I actually really love the blade. It's a good looking blade. Like I said, I love the finish on it. The DLC on top of the satin. And it's got a really nice shape to it as well. It's not a Warncliffe. It's not a sheep's foot, but it does kind of have a lower point. Works really well. It's functional. Looks classy. Haven't used it a ton. Factory edge, decent. Nothing special. I do not feel compelled to sharpen this straight out of the box like I do with some other knives. Case in point, I recently got this Shirogorov Stellar, which is a beautiful knife and like perfect in pretty much every way, except the fact that, like all the other Shiros I've handled, factory edge looks really good. It's nice and thin and even, but just not that sharp. So it was like one of the first things I wanted to do when I got this was to sharpen it, and I have to say it came out really nice. All right, back to this one. So yeah, really like the blade, aside from the fact that they really needed to extend that sharpening choil out like another quarter of an inch to really clear that plunge. Handle, ergonomics are great, especially if you're someone with larger hands. This is really going to fill your hand nicely. I don't know what you call this, like a guard. I mean, this does hide the flipper tab, but your finger it nests nicely in there. Like I said, a little bit of a burr actually right here. I don't notice it that much, and those kinds of things don't bother me from ergonomic standpoint because my hands are kind of so calloused to begin with. But that might really bother you. Again, to me, it bothers me more. The burrs bother me more just because they're indicative of a lack of attention to detail when it comes to the finishing. Again, little raised edges, little burrs here. They don't bother me too much from an ergonomic standpoint. They just bother me from a quality standpoint. But the handle, it feels good. It's a good ergonomic design. You can use this, I think, even for extended periods of time very comfortably. Like I said, you do have a backspacer, some not so great finishing there, but it does accommodate a lanyard if you like that. I don't usually. And pocket clip, good looking. I think I would have preferred maybe if they had matched the finish that's on the blade. Instead, it matches the finish that's on the, I guess you could call it the bolster. Overall, nice. Standout feature here, though, is the action. So, Tuya nailed the detent. They nailed the action. This is the primary reason I like this knife. It kicks out hard. I mean, it's very fun to flip, and it's also drop shut smooth. Really, I mean, look at that. And it's got the kind of I guess the detent on it where some will drop shut smoothly, but you will feel kind of like a scratchiness as that detent bolt travels along the blade while it's opening and closing. You will feel that scratchiness. This doesn't really have that. I mean, very minimal. You know, even on really nice, expensive knives, you can still feel it. This one hardly has that at all. Super nice action. Makes it very fidgety. The thwack. You know, some knives that have like sort of a snappiness to them. This one has the snappiness, but there's also a kick when it opens up. Yeah, I just want to keep doing that. So overall, I don't really have a lot else to say about this. I mean, there's no play. Centering is slightly off on mine. I don't know if that's... I don't want to adjust the pivot because the action's perfect. There's no play. I don't think that the pivot needs adjustment. That could just be from an asymmetry in the blade grind. I have had some like that. In fact, I even have a Spyderco smock, I think it is, where you can actually, if you look closely, you can actually see the grind kind of deviating off towards one side. So the centering issues don't always come from, you know, a lack of adjustment of the pivot. They sometimes just come from the fact that the blade isn't perfectly symmetrical. Yeah, overall, I mean, so for the $260 or so that you would spend on this, I think it's pretty good. It's not perfect. There may be other things you can get for the price point that may have a little bit better fit and finish, but I doubt that you would be getting the same kind of action from those and the same kind of finishing that you get on this blade. S90V, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned that, might be my favorite steel overall. I like it more than MagnaCut. I'm someone who prefers edge retention over stainlessness or toughness. I don't use my knives in a way where the toughness or the corrosion resistance matter as much. Pretty good at keeping them clean. So S90V, definitely one of my favorite steels. So the fact that this has such a good looking S90V blade and such good flipping action, I would say this is a highly recommendable knife, especially if you like stuff that's full sized and, you know, kind of different looking. You know, you don't really see white G10 a lot. And I personally, you know, G10 is not the kind of material that gets a lot of people that excited if they're looking for something more expensive. But when it's, you know, when it's finished this way, where it's not just like a peel ply, it can actually look really nice. You know, you get the pattern, the layered pattern, like looks almost like a wood grain. In this case, I really like it, and the red liners are a nice touch too. I don't know if that's something that Jim Skelton like specified. He said, you know what, Tuya, when you're making my Caladans, make sure you make one with a white G10 and red liners. Or if that's something that maybe the manufacturer suggested to him as an option, and he said, yeah, that sounds cool. I don't really know. But, oh, once I pick this up, I just don't want to stop flipping it. So those are my thoughts. Cool knife, recommendable. You know, maybe not as good overall as what you might get from other manufacturers, but again, I think you would pay more for the same thing from other manufacturers. And again, if you like something with a nice action, this is probably one of the best things you can get. Have a good day.